All right. Uh, Hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to our 13th International Beer Symposium, Biomathematics, Ecology, and Education and Research Symposium. It is really a big, great delight for us to be hosting you, especially in this year 2020, going through all we have been going through. Actually, just a couple days ago, I saw a meme where number 2020 was beating 666. So we have gone through a lot, and for those of you who have joined the beer symposium earlier, we were actually scheduled to have this year's beer, this 13th beer symposium, face-to-face in in Virginia at University of Richmond campus. But because of COVID, as in all of our activities, as most of your activities, it had to be canceled. But beer has a history. We could not cancel beer. Beer is not a symposium that we could take a gap year for. So very quickly, we had to improvise and created this e-beer virtual beer symposium. This symposium is really created with the help of my collaborators, my co-organizers, Doctors Anuj Mubai, Aditi Ghosh, Padu Sasasher, and Rebecca Perlin and Sarah Leisman. Without them, there wouldn't be e-beer, and I don't think there will be future beers as well. So I am very grateful to them for co-organizing this beer symposium. This year, 2020, is also a very special year for our beer conference. It is sponsored partially by the Intercollegiate Biomathematics Alliance, which happens to also award every other year this Distinguished Senior Fellowship Awards to true leaders of our field in terms of research and education contributions. This 2020 is especially important year, and I am really proud to have two of the goddesses of our field to actually join us and be humble enough to accept our fellowship awards. First of all, speaking of awards, I like to mention just a couple of short words about the fellowship awards that the IBA offers. There are two distinguished research fellowships. On even years, IBA offers the fellowship award to senior distinguished researchers, and on odd years, the junior distinguished researchers receive the Carlos Chavez Prize. So it is my great honor to introduce our first prize winner, Dr. Lisette Depilis. She is a very award-friendly member of our community. She is one of the true leaders, both in terms of education and in terms of research of biomathematics. In fact, I was born and raised as a statistician until early 2000s. And in very early 2000s, I attended a workshop hosted by her institution, which made me join the dark side. And it couldn't have been a better decision in my career. So Dr. Depilis, it's my great honor to inform you that the board of directors of IBA agreed to confer the Distinguished Senior Fellowship Award to you this year. I am humbled with your presence.
Well, thank you, LJ. I really appreciate that. I have to say, I am humbled. And when I first opened your message about having won this award, I really felt like a Nobel Prize winner. I was just delighted and just felt really just so honored. And then to find out that I could share this with Amy, who honestly is one of the best people I know. I couldn't be happier. This is the IBA is a wonderful group of people, and I'm just in awe of LJ for what he's done to establish and run this whole organization. And I don't want to take any more time because I'm super looking forward to the talks tonight. So all I can say is my deepest thanks. I am honored to be here, and I am really looking forward to hearing Amy. And I just have to say about Amy, I would not have had the career path I had if it hadn't been for her. She made doing math so much fun and so meaningful. And she's really one of the smartest people I know. She's fearless when it comes to mathematics and mathematical modeling. And I think you are in for a big treat getting to listen to her tonight. Thanks, LJ.
Well, thank you, Lisette. So actually, Lisette is my plant. I paid her to introduce Amy so that I won't have to. It's my great honor that this year the board of directors of IBA could not basically decide who is better than the other, because when you have the two best, you take the two best. So the second, the co-winner of the Distinguished Senior Fellowship Award is conferred to Dr. Amy Radunskaya. Okay, so before I say the what is coming next, the difference between Amy and I is Amy is intelligent and I am not. The reason that my email yesterday introduced Amy as Amy Radunskaya of Harvey Mott was actually not a Freudian slip. It was just my stupidity. She is from Pomona College. My apologies. I knew she is from Pomona College, but I guess my when you are two best, you just get confused. So, Amy, I am once again so thankful that you agreed to be the keynote speaker this year, and you agreed to be the recipient of this honor. I couldn't be happier that you're the co-recipient of this fellowship.
Okay, thank you, LJ. So should I just move right in? I have a opening slide here.
No, well, give me 2 more seconds. Give me 2 more seconds. And
okay.
Speaking of awards, we have been the organizing group of this conference. We have been very lucky to be working with each other. This is an amazing group that I was working with. But especially there are two members of our group that I would like to recognize and like offer 2 awards showing our appreciation for them. Our certificate of recognition for this great work that is being done goes to Sarah Leisman. Sarah is the outreach and education coordinator of IBA, and Sarah is one of my discoveries. I discovered Sarah when she was a student at our institution, and I thought she was a great treasure. and she turned out to be even greater treasure than I thought. So I'm very lucky to be working with her. And Sarah, I hope you accept our recognition and our acknowledgement of your efforts for your contributions to this group.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Akron. It's such an honor to receive an award from my own mentor, and from such an amazing group of people. You know, they say it takes a village to raise a child, but really it takes a village to make beer happen, I think. And so it wouldn't have been possible without our really awesome group.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. And of course, last but not least, another person who does need no introduction is Rebecca Perlin. Rebecca is I think chiefly responsible that we have not screwed up more than we have, despite all of my efforts. And Rebecca, please accept our acknowledgement and recognition of your efforts on behalf of IBA as outreach and technical coordinator.
You know, this is really thoughtful of you guys to do this, and I really appreciate it coming from the four of you. It means a lot. I respect you guys so much, and you guys, this team is wonderful. It's so effective, and it's like that because we all put in so much of our heart and time in doing that. And it's such a joy to work with you guys. So I appreciate you guys and the effort that you put in, and you make it easy.
Thank you, Rebecca. Tim, can you hear us? So I'll keep this short, but Tim Komar from Benedictine University is our BioSigma education speaker, plenary speaker tomorrow. But I asked Tim to join us today because Tim is responsible for the birth of the Beer Symposium. Beer Symposium started 13 years ago in 2008 as a one-room conference with, I think, 20 attendees and 10 talks in one room, talking one after another. And today we have over 250 attendees. In 2008, when we first came up with the idea of the beer conference, I asked my colleague Tim to see if he would be interested in helping me with organizing a conference. And Tim said, I would. I don't care what the conference is called as long as the acronym is beer. So I had to sit down and come up with a name to match the acronym beer. So I like to recognize and acknowledge Tim's help in terms of all the research accomplishments that we had, and all the educational accomplishments that we had, and everything that he has done for IBA and the beer conference. So he will be our plenary speaker, and we'll talk about his contributions to the education world. But I think it would be injustice to him if I hadn't recognized his contributions to the beer conference. So Tim, if you like to say a couple of things, you can say a couple of things, because I am already over my time.
Oh, thank you, OJ. Well, first of all, thanks to this year's organizers for putting together a wonderful meeting in a format that's just not the way that beer usually goes. It's going to be a little hard to play soccer online. No, it looks like a great program this year, and I'm impressed with how this is put together, and just that everything seems like it's going smoothly with all the communications and all that. So I'm looking forward to a great meeting, and thank you all.
Thank you,
and
Tim.
Thanks to BioSigma for picking me this year to speak. So.
Of course, they couldn't have a better choice. That's right. So Tim has mentioned that it would be difficult to play soccer this year. There are a couple of things that the beer conference is known for, and one of them is the recreational soccer. We played soccer almost every year. I think we had to cancel soccer once because of bad weather, and this is the only time, I guess, that we won't be able to play soccer. Okay, so without much ado, I would like to leave the floor to Padu to introduce our speaker, keynote speaker. And after the keynote presentation, please don't leave. Our program will continue. Dr. Mike Plantold will give us my much anticipated presentation of mathematics in movies. With that, Padu, take it away.
Thank you, Olcay, and I'll keep this short, Amy. I know that. Okay, great. So it's actually an honor when Olcay and team asked me to, introduce you, because I have had the pleasure to work with Amy. We both serve on the SIAM Diversity Advisory Committee, and she's always full of energy. So, as you all may know, she's the co-director of EDGE, which is stands for Enhancing Diversity in Graduate Education, as well as the president of the EDGE Foundation. And of course, I knew her before when she was serving as the president of the Association for Women in Mathematics, which has championed so many great activities and initiatives that has helped so many, the career of so many, bright women who have really contributed a lot to mathematics and also, besides her societal contributions, I think she's also a prolific researcher. And in fact, I personally mentored my student using on a cancer paper that you both wrote. And it was a really good starting point for the student to learn. And so I'm very pleased to introduce Amy. And I'm really looking forward, like all of you here, a talk where she's going to share about reactions to a pandemic, which we have been having all through this year, and how the coronavirus brings mathematicians specifically to the front line. So looking forward, Amy.
Thank you, Padu. So I will share my screen now. Okay, sorry. So first of all, can you see my screen okay? All right. I wanted to thank Olcay and the team for the really huge honor of being awarded the 2020 Intercollegiate Biomathematics Alliance Distinguished Senior Fellowship Award. But I gotta say, I'm exponentially more thrilled because I get to share it with Lizette. As Lizette's my longtime friend and collaborator. We went through everything together from, her babies, trying to smuggle her baby into the Gordon conference and, going through our tenure process and everything. So much wonderful research and talking about teaching. And I just can't imagine life without Lizette. So it's really, really cool that y'all did that. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. So today, when I got the Nobel Prize email, and it said, "Oh, congratulations!" and by the way, could you give a talk in a few weeks? And I was like, "Sure." I can talk about, maybe current research or fancy stuff. And this word cloud is from Beer 2018, all the abstracts, and then I made a word cloud of all the words that appeared there. But I thought, 2020 has been such a crazy year. It has affected me in so many ways that deeply and profoundly, and our whole community, I'm sure, feels the same. So I wanted to just share my story of the last few months in the hopes that it can help us all reflect on what's happened to us in our world and how we can move forward. And I would like to encourage you all to interject and react. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat window. because this is a story. It's not like a hardcore research talk, although I'm going to tell you about some of that. And this is joint work, but I'm going to tell you about with two of my colleagues at Claremont, who I will tell you about. Now, Olche knows Claremont well. The first time I met Olche, I said, you know, we could maybe have beer in Claremont. And he goes, oh, no hotels there. So, you know, he's thinking of, but somehow he caved in, and we did have beer at Claremont. I thought it was pretty fun too. They have great soccer fields, right? And we had the local brewery cater and stuff. So I'm a big beer fan, and I'm so happy to be here with you all this evening. A shout out to my Women Math Warrior friends there in the lower right corner. If you are one, you'll know what I mean. So what do I mean by mathematicians on the front line? Well, when the pandemic started, all of a sudden you saw on the nightly news graphs of mathematical models as curves like this one that you see here. And you heard, you know, newscasters talk about inflection points and exponential growth versus self-limiting growth. And these words, I was going, do they really know what they're talking about? But anyway, it was very startling how all of a sudden these mathematical models were being brought to the fore and used to make real decisions. And I, you know, as the world started going crazier and crazier, I felt like I need to do something. I have some expertise here. What can I do to help? And so my first poll, so I got this idea from Lizette to do, you know, make sure we have audience interaction here because they're just little boxes on the screen. So Rebecca, here's time for the first poll. The first poll, I want you to just vote yes, no, or I'm not sure. That whether or not the coronavirus has affected your research or your work life in some way. I mean, obviously it's affected health, but your math work, your view of yourself as a mathematician. Okay, so okay, I think only the panelists are seeing the poll because it says 4 out of 4, 100%. 100% of you. Well, I'm not surprised. I think this has been an incredibly impactful thing on my life. And so what happened? What's my story here that I want to tell you today? First of all, we all know, I think, a lot about COVID-19. Fortunately, there's a lot of information out there that you can get. So these are pages from the World Health Organization's website. There's lots of data on the CDC's website. So we started hearing more and more about how this disease works. They report the incubation period, how the virus is shed. You know, they make recommendations of how long you should wait before meeting people because they feel that they know sort of the envelope of the shedding process. More and more, we know the range of symptoms, the severity of the disease. This can help us decide who will get sick and how badly they'll get sick. It'll also help us provide the right treatments to the right people. We're starting to learn more about risk factors associated with severe disease. So who's at higher risk, what chronic health conditions lead to risk. There's a lot we don't know, of course, still. And we're also learning more statistics on morbidity and mortality rate. How ill do people get? How often do they die? So very quickly during this pandemic, we felt like we had enough information to, as if you're an epidemiologist, to kind of start modeling these diseases. And in fact, even today, you can go every day, this information is updated. This is just from today, November 13th. This is the CDC's MMWR page, Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. You can get information is massive out there. And as the pandemic came more into the news, we saw mathematical models being developed. This is a fairly early one by Adam Kucharski and his colleagues about the dynamics of the transmission and attempts to control it in China. And you can see there's a SEIR model, susceptible, exposed, infectious, and removed model that then is coupled to one that a similar model where people transmit the disease through traveling to other countries. They were wondering how it was spread. A little while later, you had treatments coming in. So here we make the models more complicated. This is a paper by Ivora and his colleagues, where we again have an S, see these S, susceptible, exposed, infected, and recovered compartments, and they've added unknown infections, so infections that you don't see, hidden infections that either recover or people die, and so on. So we were reading, you know, seeing all these models and also having to go through a lot of anxiety, uncertainty, and decisions in our own institutions. So I teach at the Claremont colleges. I'll tell you a little more about their structure in a minute, but that's why Olche got me confused. Pomona, Harvey Mudd were all together in this sort of residential cluster of colleges. In the spring of 2020, everybody was wondering, what should we close down? Should we, once we were closed down, should we open up again? And that is why what motivated me to try to help people make those decisions locally, my own people. So another factor into pushing me towards trying this is I was working with a colleague, Nina Pfefferman, who was working with the American Civil Liberties Union, trying to help people in prisons, because when the pandemic first broke out, it affected people in senior living facilities and prisons and things like that way more than other people. And so there was a real fear that people who are in jail, and we all know that, you know, the prisoners are from all sorts of types, and it's not supposed to be a death sentence, but jails were huge hotspots for these pandemics. So Nina and her colleagues developed this SEIR, you know, layered model, which really inspired our model for the colleges that I'm going to tell you about next. So you have a susceptible, exposed, infected, these compartments, and please ask me if this seems unfamiliar to you. I'm sort of assuming most people have seen SEIR models. I hope I'm not wrong. But you have a model that's in the jail, and then you have one in the community because families interact with people in jail, and then they also go to court. And so there's transmission happening in these different layers. And this team was able, it inspired me because this team was able to actually help people in prison escape this death sentence from the pandemic by showing them, look, this is what's going to happen. If you leave all these people in here, these are the infection rates that you're going to see and the deaths that you're going to see. So I felt an urgency to do something. All these people are doing these models, they're affecting policy decisions. And I had worked with doctors. Lizette and I have worked with doctors for years. I've worked with pharmacists. I've worked with people in the energy business. I've worked with economists, but I've never talked so much with my family, my colleagues at school, my administrators, school and college administrators, about epidemiology, about modeling. So this was sort of a challenge to see how I could help right at home, right in my backyard. And two of my young colleagues were eager enough to help me, and I'm grateful for that. Christina Edholm, who's on the faculty at Scripps College, and Marianne Hone, who's at Pomona College. Both have different kinds of expertise that really helped with this project. So we just a bit about the setup is that this aerial view of the Claremont colleges encompasses 5 undergraduate colleges and 2 graduate schools, and they're very close together. You can sort of see them almost all in this one shot. But they all have their own presidents and deans and stuff. They were all making these decisions about what to do on their own, with all sorts of information that was very confusing to them. So Christina and Marianne and I tried to come together and figure out how could we help them make more informed decisions. So the schedule, and this might sound familiar to many of you, the schedule, what happened is like March 11th, we all went online. That was sort of spring break. And they added a week or something, and then classes started up again. We're remote. May 2nd is about when we started this modeling project, Christina, Marianne, and I. May 21st, grades for last semester were due. In June, we presented this to the Pomona president and executive staff because our goal was to not write something for a research journal, but to produce something that would help them make decisions. And so I'll show you what that looks like, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. So we presented this to the Pomona president and executive staff. A week or so later, to the Scripps president and executive staff. The next day to the Pitzer president. So these are all different colleges, different presidents, different administrations, all trying to make the same decision. In July, Pitzer decided to go online. Oh, sorry, in July 8th, just a few days later, Pomona and Scripps decided to go online, then Pitzer, then Claremont McKenna, and finally Harvey Mudd. And these are at various stages. So that was sort of our timeline of what happened. And the president of Pomona told me, thanks for your sobering model. They were really appreciative of the work. And so that was kind of good. So there's a number of assumptions that we'll make here for this model. And as you do with all models, what we were trying to do was to capture the dynamics between the different college populations, because what I was hearing from my colleagues was, well, if we let the students back on campus, they will misbehave. They will be the bad ones. They will spread the disease, right? Or, there was a lot of blaming other components of the community, or, whatever, people who have partners who work in other businesses or something. So what we wanted to do was to build a tool that was flexible enough to sort of play with different scenarios to show the administrators. So a few key assumptions that we make. So we're considering that, because this was, remember, May and June and beginning of July, where they're trying to decide whether to bring people back on campus. And now we're at that same place again, of course, but that's another story. So, but we're considering only the part of the population that's on campus, because that's the people that are together. We kind of considered 2 types of people: compliant individuals, people who would follow rules, wear the masks, adhere to physical distancing, et cetera, and then non-compliant individuals. We decided to use a deterministic model in the sense that the parameters are going to be sort of average values over these different classes of people. Why? Because we wanted something that could sort of give very quick feedback to the administrators in making their decisions. And I'll mention some more assumptions as we continue. So here are the classes of people that we, after some consideration, divided the school up into. Part of this was a function of how many were in each class. We were not allowed to identify individuals, right? So we couldn't have groups that only had a few people in them. So the three main groups are students up here in the upper left, students that are compliant and students that are non-compliant. Then we have the administrative and teaching staff. And then down here we have the housekeeping, dining, and ground staff. We thought that these three groups might have different kinds of behavior and different kinds of interactions between each other. Which is why we separated them that way. We further divided up each of those groups into high risk and low risk individuals. And that's a matter of, how do you define those has some flexibility, but just let's think high risk and low risk. And then within the staff, both administrative and teaching and the dining, housekeeping, and ground staff, there are those who had a lot of contact with students and those who had low contact with students. So that's, 2 plus 6, 8 plus 6, 14 different groups. Okay, 14 different groups of people. And then each of those are going to have their own sort of SEIR model that will attach a few extra things to. So here's your standard susceptible, exposed, infected, and recovered model. And the arrows just indicate that you can move from one compartment to another. We're going to build a continuous time model. So a differential equations model, but you could also imagine, and people have done this with agent-based models or discrete models. But like I said, we wanted something fast and that would give sort of easily understandable results. So then we have rates of going from each compartment to the other. A couple things I want to point out is that lots of people in modeling COVID, they have an infected asymptomatic group and an infected symptomatic group. We just said, well, we can't tell who's asymptomatic or just not infected. So we're putting all those into this exposed box and assuming that because in our setting, those people look the same to us. We just, we don't know if they're infected or not, but we're going to assume some fraction of these people in this exposed class are indeed infected, but asymptomatic. And that's why there's this line here that goes directly to recovered. This other thing I want to point out, can you see this little hand that's moving? Yeah. Okay, is this dashed line here says that this rate of the susceptibles going to the exposed class depends on all these things. So it depends on the number of susceptibles, the number of infected, the number of asymptomatic infected people that are in this E class. So that's this alpha fraction of them. And also this letter G here, we needed to put in something for folks who would go out into the community and interact with infected people and bring infection back. So that G is going to be play a big role because it's sort of how careful are you when you go out, when you go shopping, are you really careful to wash your hands and wear a mask and all that? Okay. Now we wanted to include in our model hospitalizations. That was a huge concern to the school, right? Can we care for sick people? Can our hospitals in the area accommodate them if we have students coming back? And also deaths, because that's something, of course, the college administration was very concerned about. So the next complication we wanted to add was if we had contact tracing, so you're contacted, you've been in close contact with someone who's infected, you would go into quarantine. So these H classes are held classes. Those are people in quarantine. And so the rate at which they go into these classes has to do with the effectiveness of your contact tracing. So that's this C variable right here, this C parameter. There are a lot of parameters, and some of them we think we could control, and some of them we can't control. So that's our basic model. I'm going to stop for a sec. Any questions before I move on? I'm going to go into how the parameters were estimated. Thank you, Paul. In a second. Okay, so we also, though, this was the compliant group. Why? Because we're assuming here that everyone who's infected actually is not is no longer infecting susceptibles. If you're infected, if you know you're sick, you're gonna isolate yourself and not be in contact with susceptible people. So you'll see there's some maybe possibility there, but it's not bad. Okay, but then if we have, but I guess the idea is, yeah, if you're infected, you're already in quarantine, you're infected. There's no held class for these I people. But for the non-compliant students, we needed to add a held class for the infected students, because maybe they're infected, they're sick, but they don't tell anybody, and they don't, they act like everything's normal. But then they're contacted by the contact tracers and they say, you have to go quarantine yourself. So that's the only difference between what the model looks like for the compliant and non-compliant students. Okay, so that is our basic model, and we just put all those boxes and arrows into differential equations, and they look something like this for the compliant individuals, and then we have this one extra one for the non-compliant group. And remember, we're only thinking of students as being non-compliant. Now, you might not agree with that, but that's what sort of the feeling was in our community. Oh, grown-ups will behave themselves, but it's the students that are going to cause all the trouble. So this answers the question of how we fit the data. We got data, and fortunately, like I said, there is a lot of data out there. There's the Los Angeles Times. So we took LA County data. Why? Because we live in LA County. Whatever mutation of virus our students are going to get, it will be the one that's here, the weather and the conditions. So we thought that was probably the best data to use. And so we got our data from this LA Times website, as well as the Los Angeles County Public Health data dashboard, which is really great. And I'm glad that they do all that. My husband's making faces at me. So we got the data. Now, of course, you might wonder, what do they measure? Well, they measure how many are, they measure cumulative cases, they measure deaths, they tell you how many people are in the hospital. They also break these things down by age, by gender, by by smaller geographical regions, which didn't really change that much. And also this data is constantly changing. So I actually did this fitting several times. This is the one from the end of June, which was right before we presented to most of these presidents. So here's the red dots are the data, and the blue is our model. You can see it's pretty good fits. You might wonder why these hospitalizations look so wonky. That's because, as you may know, they report hospitalizations like they don't report over the weekend. So every week there's a little dip, and then it goes up and it goes down. So you have to kind of either do a 7-day average or, just realize that that's what's going on. So that's how we fit the data. But the real sticky thing is that now we have 9 copies of this model, right? So we fit the one copy of the model to the LA data, thinking that's sort of the larger community. But remember, we're trying to model this college community with these different types of subpopulations: students, staff, high-risk faculty, high student contact folks. And so we actually have 9 copies of that model, right? So we have all these equations 9 times that. And so all these parameters, we actually, some of them, we just have one parameter that's shared between all the models, but sometimes they're unique to that subpopulation, and we have to estimate those. So a lot of those parameters become vectors. The hardest one is the transmission vector, the transmission parameter beta, because that seemed to depend on which group was interacting with which group, right? So if we have 10 different subpopulations, we're going to have a 10 by 10 matrix of these transmission parameters. And the way we figured that out was to, we followed the lead of Nina Pfefferman and her group's PRISM model, where they had those different subpopulations. You have a basic transmission rate, we'll call it beta, but then you divide that beta up into, well, how do you get it? It's the number of new infections per day, right, is what you want per infected in one group that they get from interacting with another group. So you split that up into the probability of encountering an infected person in the other group times the probability of an infection if you encounter someone, which should be sort of dependent on their behavior, but also on the how contagious the disease is, times the number of encounters that would happen between the two groups, times the probability that particular encounter is with a susceptible person from that group. So there are these different factors, and you put it together, and you get this matrix where you think of these various pieces as relative to sort of this number, these average numbers in the whole of LA County. So that's how we did that. There's some literature on how students interact with each other. And so did we fit it to each of the college incidence data? So we didn't have any incidence data for our colleges because like everybody had gone home, but there was data and studies from other colleges, other people that age. And so that's what we tried to use. And I think now, like if we want to think about next semester, for example, I think there's a lot more data out there now. So we could probably get a more precise handle on this. So just so the human component, here's some students right in my math classroom. Those were the good old days when they could sit across from each other and look at each other's pieces of paper. And I mean, some of you are probably in person, and I hope that goes well. And this is our president right here in the middle, Gabby Starr. Totally not social distancing, but that was pre-COVID with the students. I kind of like that picture. Okay, so that's how we sort of fit the parameters, and did that make sense? So here's the, why do we have 9 copies? Okay, so go back here. We had all these different populations, right? Each of these shapes, the ovals and the rectangles, are a different subpopulation. For each of those shapes, we have a whole set of those equations. We have a whole copy of the model. So it's actually more than 9. It's 6. Actually, low risk is, low risk is split into these. So it's 2. It's 4 plus 4 plus 2. So 10 copies altogether. 9 of them are compliant and 1 of them is non-compliant. So there are 9 non-compliant copies. Okay, so Rebecca, here's the next poll. But is it just the panelists who are going to get the poll? Because then forget it. The poll is going to be, does that make sense? I think only the panelists get it. I'm sure all the panelists understood every word, right?
Yeah, Amy, I'm not sure because only 4 responses, and we have a lot more panelists than that as well. So I'm not quite sure what happened with that, but we'll give it a go again and see what happens.
Okay, so you can put it up. So yes, no, doesn't make sense. And there was a question, is beta the only parameter changing in each copy of the model? No, a bunch of the other parameters change, like how like if younger people, so different age groups are less likely to be hospitalized, for example, different or less likely to die if they experience severe illness. So those parameters also change between groups. But in that case, you'd have one different parameter per group. The betas are the ones where you have a whole matrix of them. The M and the question was, did that make sense? Yes, no, not sure if it made sense. The poll is up. I don't know if you can see it. Okay, I may have missed this, but what are the M and D class in the model? The M it stands for medical, so it's hospitalized people. We couldn't use H because we already used that for held. D is dead people. Yeah, thanks. All right, I'm not sure. We'll just move on. The poll, I don't think the poll is really working. That does that. Oh, no, someone did. Okay.
Rebecca, should we end the poll?
Yeah,
Yeah, can you guys see the results now? I just ended it.
yeah, I can see it. So most people see
it.
That's good. Okay, if you have more questions at the end, you can, I'm happy to answer them. Okay. Can I make that go away? So, okay, so here are our classes again, the 10 different groups. And how did we have to then, part of the parameterization is also knowing how many people are in these groups. So this was a little trickier. Of course, we knew how many students there were and stuff, but I'm showing you this pie chart because I think it's sort of interesting. We thought that a lot of the faculty and staff might be high risk individuals, but in fact, not so many at all. It's as far as we could tell. We had to get this data from HR. It had to be anonymized. We had to ask each school separately. So that's why only Pomona and Pitts are in this pie chart, but we could, we added scripts later. These little pieces that are sticking out are the high risk ones. And I just wanted to show you that there really aren't that many, at least what we considered high risk at that time, especially among the staff, these little green ones, the teaching and admin more so. So that says, the takeaway from that is, well, if you're high risk, teaching, just, you don't have to go in. Okay, so now I want to show you some results from the model. So remember, this was from back in July or July of 2020, because we're trying to decide whether to reopen, whether to bring students back in the fall. So of course, all that data could be refit. So I want to show you 3 different scenarios. A realistic one, when the students misbehave, and one when everyone misbehaves. And so to help the stakeholders, and by stakeholders, I mean, in this case, the administration of the school. So these are, the vice presidents, deans, and whatnot. We thought just showing them a lot of graphs might not help. So we made a little app, and I'm wondering if I hope I can share that with you. I'm going to try, okay. I'm going to do a new share with my MATLAB. This would be a good moment to stretch if you need to, but be quick about it. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here's our app. We did it in MATLAB, and it's not fancy. It kind of brings home the fact that these systems of differential equations, even though they're like 80 some of them, they can be solved really fast. So on the left, at the top are the initial conditions. They turn out to be very critical. So the realistic goal, if I click on that, it just sets all the initial conditions. You can set them for the students, like when they get back to school, how many are exposed? What fraction? Or how many, I can't remember. And what fraction percent, that's right. We decided that everything should be in percent for administrators. Okay, so exposed compliant, not very many, but the recovered compliant, there's some, etc. So you can set how many of these. And of course, the ones that are dangerous are to have these exposed students coming back to campus. So this is where testing would be really important. If you tested people and quarantined people before coming back, then you could reduce those initial values. The admins and the staff you can set as well. We assume those were pretty low. This next bar, we can say how many, this is that letter G, infected contacts per week. So that means when you go off campus and go to the store, or go get your teeth cleaned or whatever, how often do you bring back an infection? And so we assume that would be pretty low for compliant people if you're careful. And if you're not careful, you know, this could, you go to a big rave or something, and this has been the problem on college campuses. This is an app that we made in MATLAB. Yes, made this in MATLAB. MATLAB has this app maker that's kind of fun. And then down at the bottom are some parameters that you can set. So what percent of the students are non-compliant? So for the realistic scenario, we said 25% of students were non-compliant. How effective is tracing? You know, how many of them do they catch? How many of the infections are asymptomatic? So, and this beta scaling is, remember, beta was that transmission parameter. So that's sort of the overall infectiveness of the disease, which is estimated from bigger populations, right? And then here we have the plots on the right. So the plots are so the, if I show the susceptibles, then, so there are about 4,000 people in this scenario, because this was just Pomona and Pitzer we were doing at this time. The susceptibles kind of wipe out everything. So we have a click button so you can take that out, and then you can see that there are a lot of people are exposed. That's this green line up here. And few, not so many are infected. But if we just look at, say, the high risk staff and faculty and take away the students, then you see sort of a different picture. And then if you don't show the held population, so in this realistic scenario, really what you see happening is this on this y-axis down at the bottom right, it's just very small numbers. This black line here is how many are dead. So this, you can interpret these as fractions, right? 0.03. That's a 3% chance one person will die in 100 days, which we thought was sort of the length of the semester. So in this real, if you look at, you can just look at the students also, which is what, you know, some people were worried about. So you can see that a lot of students, this red line is the infected graph. A lot of students, well, not a lot, this is the infected people per time. So some people get infected, but they get better. And so that's sort of a look at the app. And we had these different scenarios here. So if students misbehave, what happens? More of them get infected. But the scarier thing is that more of the staff are infected, and we can take out the students. So now there's a, you know, there's almost a 0.75% chance of someone dying, which the administration thought would be terrible. And then if everybody misbehaves, then the numbers go up a lot more. Okay, I'm going to go back to the talk now. Yeah, so you see, it's nice. You're right. It's quick. It's nice you know, I love the agent-based models and stuff, but it's really nice to have this really quick kind of overall general results. Now I'm going to go back to my talk.
Amy, if you can take five more minutes, that'll be great, actually.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so these are all that's a list of those 3 different scenarios. And then I also wanted to look at what trace the effective, we want to look at the effective tracing. So these are a lot of simulations just plotted on top of each other. You can see that as tracing gets better, the number of, the red is higher tracing, more effective tracing. So more people are quarantined, of course, but fewer people are exposed and fewer people die. And so this gives you the effective tracing. And there's been some really nice work recently on kind of getting more specific about how to put this contact tracing into the model, the effect of the contact. If students misbehave, it's even more important to do contact tracing. That's kind of a no-brainer, but you actually have a quantitative handle on this. And this is a big question right now, I know on our campus, like how much, because it's expensive to do tracing, it's expensive to do testing, how, you know, the specificity of the tests, et cetera, are up into question. Okay, I already showed you these. So here's some takeaways. High-risk people shouldn't be on campus because they are the ones that are most at risk. That's sort of by definition. The initial population distribution was really important. So testing on arrival, quarantining on arrival, and active contact tracing and isolation really mitigates the risk. This is a big argument I'm having right now with our administration. The contact tracing, they are very reluctant to invade people's privacy by tracing. So what they have now is you report yourself. You know, students are supposed to go and type in, oh yeah, I got sick and I was with these 5 people, and I just don't think that's going to work. But yeah. And then reducing the number of non-compliant individuals is absolutely important. And for that, we thought student buy-in was, so I think students, if they get engaged in the issue and they get engaged maybe in collecting data or somehow involved in the process, it might have them buy into all of this more. I don't know what you guys think. You know, educating students. So how do you do that? Well, one way we thought we could make like a BuzzFeed quiz. So this is a draft. So like your super fun Saturday in a pandemic, here you are, you know, you waited all week for Saturday to have some fun. You're going to take these BuzzFeed quizzes, you know, you answer these questions, and at the end they say, you know, you're typhoid Mary or you're healthy Harry, you know, they categorize you as a type person. So like time to work out, choose your exercise. Should you hike with friends? Should you play basketball with friends? Should you swim laps in a public pool or Zumba on Zoom? So like that. But yeah, we have lists of these questions, and we haven't tried it yet, but that's sort of a way to educate people. We're trying to brainstorm about how to get students to want to be part of making things better. And yeah, so it's a moving target. We're getting new information on COVID all the time. And another one of my projects where we're looking at blood coagulation. It's amazing like what COVID does to your blood. Crazy. Testing modalities are changing. They have super quick tests now, maybe not as accurate, but quick is good. They're very complicated student dynamics we now know, like even, you know, even with our campus closed, we have students that have decided to live together in apartments and that are having parties, and, you know, it's so the student dynamics, I think, could be modeled more effectively. I already mentioned contact tracing. And then, of course, there are the costs, which, you know, there's huge costs to keeping your campus closed to having students spread out. Mental health has been, problems have been skyrocketing. We just did a campus survey, and it's just frightening, actually frightening. I don't know what we're going to do about that. This is a word cloud. I do word cloud sometimes at the beginning of class. So this was about when we would have had our fall break, but we didn't. I said, how are you all feeling today? And we did this word cloud. This is how everybody's feeling. This is how I'm feeling. I know Olce's feeling this way because he told me, but I just think, maybe by thinking of all our expertise and we can come together and help move things forward. And that's sort of my hope in talking to you. And thank you so much, all of you, for working. I know how hard it is to get these things together. And now you all can unmute and talk for just a little bit, because I know there's lots of other things going on. There's my email if you want to get in touch with me.
So thank you very much, Amy, for that wonderful insight, and especially from perspective of how it impacts students on campus. And there's lots and lots of questions. So it's because we have another speaker. So, but I'll still just tell you some overall things like public transport to college, impact of that. And there was a question, specific questions on why 9 copies of the equation to, is beta the only parameter changing in the model? So I think those are some specific questions. And also you mentioned cost. I know that cost from the perspective of the students, but also cost for running the, we are all in a remote world. So why would you pay 3 times the tuition of as an out of state when I'm getting the same quality of education? People are now making models for that. So it's very interesting. You started talking about the cost also. And so there's and then I guess there's a question on the length of the days that you believe these models can accurately predict the dynamics. So you could take any one of these questions and maybe give a short answer, and then we can put all these questions and probably send it to you also. So any of these questions like public transport, do you actually fit college incidence data to your model also? How long do you think these models are predictable?
Yeah, so we didn't, I went up to 100 days because that was like our semester, and we figured that people would go, students would go home, and if they stayed longer, if they stayed on campus longer, the premise is that, I think I need to turn some lights on. If the premise is that these people are mostly all on campus together. So if you just kept them there over vacation, then you could certainly run it for longer. But if they go off, then you'd have to have a stop and a restart, I think. I think I already answered some of the ones about why you have the different copies.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
Transportation that's a really interesting question. And we are a very much residential college. Almost everybody lives on campus. That's not kind of an issue, but I can see that would be an issue if you were trying to do a similar thing at a different kind of school. So I guess I wanted to get across that you could do this for any particular place. It's just kind of asking different questions, maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you very much. I think I guess there's more questions coming on the chat. Maybe we'll just take one more question at 8:10, and we'll give a 5-minute break before the next speaker. What are your plans for your model in spring 2021?
Yeah, so what I'd like to do is now that we have more information about contact tracing, I'd really like to refine that part of it. And also we have more information now on, at the beginning, it was like, oh, younger people aren't getting that sick. As the pandemic wore on, even though it's a lower in-state rate, now we have much more better data on that. So I'd really like to go back and look at those numbers again. And also, some schools have opened. Some schools are test beds for this. Some schools have done this successfully also, and some haven't. And so I'd really like to look at those. So I think someone asked that, like, did you look at data from colleges? Like, that would be a very important thing to do. So I'm looking forward to winter break, which is pretty soon. So I can do some more research. I'm gonna turn my lights on too.
So we all know now how you spend your break. So that's great. Research. That's Amy. So thank you very much. Let's give a big round of virtual applause for Amy. Thank you, Amy, for sharing your.
Applause.
This is hopefully.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Yes, the virtual applause. Thank you all. So Olche, you want to take over?
Yes. We'll start our movie show in about 5 minutes, so we can all stretch our legs, get our popcorns or adult beverages, including the underage people. After all, you're at home. It's not like you're gonna drive in a place. Before our next speaker starts, I'd like to just make a few quick announcements in the way that the rest of the conference will work. Tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll start with Dr. Timothy Komar's BioSigma BioSigma presentation. All the talks, all the contributed talks, poster sessions, posters, and oral presentations are already posted. If you go to the conference website, symposium.beer, and click on the schedule, you'll see a link to where all the talks are posted. I encourage all of you to scan and watch the presentations, read the posters that are of interest to you. And during the rest of the conference, on Saturday and Sunday, you'll have a chance to interact and network with the presenters of any of the talks posted. Tomorrow at noon, poster presenters will have actually synchronous presentations of their posters. I would encourage everybody to come to the poster session and interact with the poster presenters. And all the oral presentations, as I said, are already up. Go watch them. And on Sunday, you'll get to talk to any one of them, or if you're an oral presenter, others who are interested in your talk will get to interact with you during the community hour at noon. And those links will be posted early tomorrow as well. But as I said, all the presentations are posted, and the link is on the symposium.beer website and on the schedule. So I'm sorry I took your leg stretch time. I think we have about 2 minutes or so before I get the honor of introducing Mike Planthold. All right, it looks like it is 8:15 Eastern Standard Time. And after a wonderful presentation by Amy, it's time for us to just relax and see, hopefully, the less painful parts of mathematics. Hopefully, mathematics that is not used in modeling COVID. So I have the great honor of introducing Dr. Mike Plantholt. Dr. Plantholt is a professor emeritus from Illinois State University. When I joined ISU 16 years ago, I had the pleasure of being given an office just across from his, and Mike had a co-author who had an office just across from his. So when their doors were open, they would actually could see each other, and they would just yell at each other from one room to the other room across the hallway, actually talking about research. So I could overhear the comments that referees made on their papers while they were yelling at each other. All right, Amy, congratulations. Congratulations. I was actually very envious of him. I always wanted a colleague, a collaborator, who will just sit across from me and I could just talk instead of driving like 6 hours to his or her institution or emailing. So thanks to COVID, this actually happened. Now I do research with my colleagues, just like talking to them across the hallway in a way. So Dr. Mike Plantholt is also our Uncle Mike, because my son, Devin, who is actually doing his PhD in mathematics now at WashU, was his student as well. And we didn't really have to twist his arm much. I guess Dr. Plantholt felt guilty enough not to give him anything but A. So he's an amazing speaker. He's an amazing person. I think I'm really very honored to know him. And so with that, I can't wait for his presentation, Mathematics in Movies. Mike?
All right, thank you, OJ. So let me share my screen. So while I'm getting the screen up, I remember, let's see if this is going to work. I remember when OJ first texted me about this. I got a text from OJ, and it said, "Mike, I need to talk to you." And I don't know if you're like this, but when I get that from OJ, I go, "Uh-oh, now what's wrong?" So that scared me a little bit. But whoops, I got a little too far there. But then he texted me and said, "Hey, I have an offer you can't refuse." And he then asked me if I would give a talk. I had given a talk for students about math in the movies at some point, and he remembered that somehow and asked me to do that. So I was very happy to do that. I've been to a couple of the biomath, the beer conferences in the past. Although my area is discrete mathematics, you'll see some of my stuff in here is headed in that direction. So here we go. I'm going to talk about some attitudes in mathematics that you see in the movies, some things that I use when I teach class, some of the stuff, clips from movies, some famous mistakes in movies, and at the end, a little cinematography. I like the cinematography. So let me start talking. And here, so OJ gave me permission to announce this. So based on this year's beer conference, they're working on getting a new movie out there starring Amy and Tim and OJ. And it could be a big hit, but they're still working on the financial details of it. OJ, do you have any updates on that?
Yeah, we got 5% Rotten Tomatoes award so far.
All right, that looks like that may be a no-go. All right, so anyhow, let me start off with talking about attitude towards mathematics. And I think in the past, you know, a math person, a movie was always some person disconnected to the world and really couldn't connect to other people. Here's one scene. I've never seen this movie, Better Off Dead, but this is a nightmare. This person's thinking, what's the worst thing that could happen to me? And it's John Cusack. And the worst thing that could happen would not only that he'd be in math class, but be in a math class where all the other students love math. So let's see if this is working here. Oops, something happened there.
Hereto made orientable in our diagram by connecting the various points HIGK, PEGQ, and LMNO, creating our geometric configurations, which have no properties but with location, are equal to the described triangle CAB
Here's comes my favorite
quintuplicated.
person.
Therefore, it is also the 5 triangles composing the aforementioned NIGH, each are equal to the triangle CAB in this geometric concept. Therefore, in a like manner, the geometric metaphors can derive a repeated vectoral sum. This was your assignment, and I would like to see the results. Please.
Mike, I believe they can't see your video.
They are not seeing the video?
No, you might like to actually unshare your screen and then not share the PowerPoint, but share your entire computer.
All right, so I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure. Let me see, let me get out of this. So were you seeing my screen before I went to the movie?
No, we were just seeing your PowerPoint file. So unshare your screen.
All right, so unshare, well, they're sharing. Not sure how to unshare it. No.
You, at the bottom of your screen, there should be a stop sharing button.
There should be a what button?
It should be like a red or orange stop share.
Red stop share.
I'm not seeing that. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I see what you say. Stop the share. And then just restart again, you think?
Share
Yes,
your entire
now
screen.
Now go to share.
All right.
Share screen again, but this time click on the default share.
Right, I did that. All right, let's try it again. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm sorry about that.
No.
Are you seeing that part?
I don't believe this will work either.
It worked yesterday when we were talking. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, but if you click on the link, the YouTube clip will pop up, and that's not a part you're sharing.
It shared yesterday, didn't it? Let's try again.
Is your video on the desktop or is video online?
Well, this video is online.
Hereto made orientable in
So
our
you're not seeing
diagram by
that?
connecting the various
No.
points HIGK, PEGQ, and LMNO, creating our geometric.
Can you try sharing your video from here? If you reshare, press share again, but share the video.
Can you say that again?
Stop
Sarah?
share.
So just press the share button right now, and is the video up?
Oh, so I did the stop share. Okay. So should I try sharing again? I'm sorry, I thought we checked this yesterday. I go to the regular screen, and then I go to the PowerPoint.
Yeah, don't share the PowerPoint. Don't share this
Don't
file.
share.
When you click on share screen, you'll have several options. The
Right.
default one is the screen.
Right.
The one where you actually see your own picture, share
Right.
that one.
Right. Oh, so I'll share it first, or not just click on it. Okay.
Yes.
And now? And so what are you seeing now?
I can play this movie on my.
Yes, it's working.
Working?
Now. Okay, now it's
Okay.
working.
All right, maybe I clicked on it before and it didn't.
Yep, now it's working.
All right, so let's try it again. So here's
it's working.
So the setting here is the setting is where, so this is John Cusack, and he's in a class where everyone loves mathematics, and that's his nightmare.
Two made orientable in our diagram by connecting the various points HIGK,
Whoa.
PEGQ, and LMNO, creating our geometric configurations, which have no properties, but with location. R equal to the described triangle CAB quintuplicated. Therefore,
this is my favorite person here.
it is also the 5 triangles composing the aforementioned NIGH, each are equal to the triangle CAB in this geometric concept. Therefore, in a like manner, the geometric metaphors can derive a repeated vectoral sum. This was your assignment, and I would like to see the results. Please, take them out.
Back in the 90s.
Oops.
Of course, it's
Sophia.
Called one.
And Buster.
Looks just like our classic, right?
And Mr. Meyer. Please.
All right, so that's enough. So you can imagine things go downhill when he goes to the board there, right? All right. Let me just mention a couple more where it's these, you know, the math people are nerds. You can't talk to anybody. So here's a really old one. This is Jimmy Stewart in the movie 1951, No Highway in the Sky. He's a mathematician engineer who predicts that there's a flaw in a plane design, and people are investigating him with that prediction. And so, for example, I want to play this clip, but the investigator is with him there. He goes to a house and it's the wrong house, so he can't tell which house he lives in. And then the investigator comes over and he's picking up a stack of books to trying to find a place for him to sit. And then they have this little conversation. So here's some math in there. In 1742, Goldbach postulated that every positive even integer n is the sum of 2 primes. It's been verified to 10,000, but never proved. So this conjecture actually appears in a lot of movies, I think just because it's so easy to state. And the investigator is the typical reaction. Sounds interesting, but it's a little pointless. And Stewart says, oh, quite, but that's the beauty of it. And the investigator just kind of shakes his head at him. Now, here's a weird one. I'll bet nobody's ever heard of this movie. Teresa's Tattoo. You've probably never heard of it because it's a bad movie, but I really, really like the beginning of it. So Teresa is a graduate student in mathematics and has a chip on her shoulder because nobody understands anything she says to them. And when they hear she's in math, it's a turnoff. So there's a scene where somebody's trying to pick her up at a party. Bruno tells me that you're in physics department, math department. See ya, bye. So math is worse than physics again. And here's a discussion with some investigator who's trying to check out what she says. She's explaining, well, I'm in mathematics, theoretical mathematics. I'm trying to model, forget it, and she starts cursing. So she's kind of out there, nobody believes her or understands her. And the movie is kind of like, what's the movie, The Hangover, where the guys wake up and weird things have happened and they try and figure out what happened. Well, that's what this movie is like. So at the start of the movie, she looks like the thing at the top. She gets drugged and she wakes up and suddenly she has red hair and a lot of makeup and a tattoo on her. And so she has to figure out what happened. So it's kind of a good setup, I thought, but then it goes downhill from there. So here's another old one. Mirror Has Two Faces with Jeff Bridges and Barbara Streisand. That's a remake of an old movie. It has some lectures in there, so you can see he's lecturing on calculus. But he's one of these old stodgy types of math person who believes everything should be very organized, except he gets attracted to Barbara Streisand. So of course, the math professor calls the sex hotline. And the sex hotline says, life is complex, there's no guarantees. He says, why should that be? The mathematical world is completely rational, completely uncomplicated by sex. And the answer is, oh, honey, you think too much. So I think these are good examples of math people being kind of separate from the world, at least in the old days. But more recently, I think there have been a lot of movies that involve mathematicians that share them in a different light. And here's a list of some of the more recent ones. And if somebody wants to send out other suggestions, that's good. Gifted, I don't know if many people have seen that one. That's a young girl whose mother has died. And let me show a clip from that one, just because this is a statistics group. So in this one, they found out that she's gifted. And so they're trying to help her along with her gifts.
I understand you like mathematics. So on there, you'll find a great out-of-print book called Transitions in Advanced Algebra.
Yeah, love that book.
You're saying you've read it?
Yeah, I've kind of moved on to differential equations now.
On a very simple level, Gifted is about a math prodigy.
Child prodigies see the world very differently from most people. Films like Gifted and Hidden Figures sort of demystify what it is to be a female mathematician or scientist. Mary is similar to young Catherine in Hidden Figures because they're both math geniuses. They're both very special, very smart kids.
One thing that was really important to Mark was that this movie be really honest and really real. And so we've actually talked to mathematics professors, prodigies, to really understand what it is to be a prodigy, to know what that feels like. We really wanted to make sure that we were not just doing the Hollywood version of being a prodigy, but actually digging into the reality of it.
I think it will say to young girls that it's okay to be smart. And I think it should allow parents to help foster that curiosity. It's wonderful that intellect is being celebrated.
Mary, you knew the problem was incorrect. Why didn't you say anything?
Hank says I'm not supposed to correct older people. Nobody likes a smartass.
Hi, movie fans. Keeping with the drama.
You caught it there, but back in the original equation that she had to prove, she's trying to prove that, let me get out here, that the PDF for a normal distribution is a valid PDF. So it will give you one when you integrate it, but they left off the negative sign at the beginning. And so that's what they're referring to at the end there. So that's a very sweet movie. A couple other ones, Hidden Figures was pretty famous a few years ago. Movie about Ramanujan. X plus Y, I don't know if many people have seen that one, but I have a clip from that one in a little bit. And The Imitation Game with Alan Turing is a pretty good one. Now here's the one I was disappointed. Here's some clips I use in class when I'm teaching. So this is a famous scene with Lindsay Lohan in the movie Mean Girls. I assume most of you have at least heard of that. So I have a 25-year-old daughter who actually worked at Beer for Old J a few years back. And back then, every student her age knew Mean Girls and all the scenes from it. I gave them this problem in class. You can see the problem on the blackboard there. They're at a competition. It's a L'Hopital's rule problem. And I didn't tell the students where it came from. So typically when I give it from this movie and then show the movie, they all go, oh, I remember that. But this year, fewer than half of my students knew the movie. So I was disappointed in that one. Here's the clip from that movie.
Contestants, find the limit of this equation.
Calling somebody else fat won't make you any skinnier. Calling someone stupid doesn't make you any smarter. And ruining Regina George's life definitely didn't make me any happier. All you can do in life is try to solve the problem in front of you.
The limit is -1.
Oh, crap. I lost.
That answer is incorrect. Now, we are in a sudden death. If Miss Heron can answer this problem correctly, we have a winner.
Limits. Why couldn't I remember anything about limits? Limits. That was the week Aaron got his haircut. Oh, God, he looks so cute. Okay, focus, Katie. What was on the board behind Aaron's head? If the limit never approaches anything, the limit does not exist. The limit does not exist!
Our new state champions, the North Shore Mathletes.
How do you like me now? You like?
Always like it when a math nerd rips his shirt off, right? That's always a pleasing scene there. All right, but I was surprised that so many students didn't recognize that scene. Here's another one. Oh, sometimes I use in class. I don't know how many people have seen Pixar in a Box. This is a website that was done by a combination of Pixar and the Khan Academy. So it's a group effort there. And they have some sites that was really designed really for middle school or junior high students in math. But they have sites there. Let me show you some of the sites. If you look on the left there, there are some sites. I use this sometimes in my first calculus class. So you can try and do animation and try and show a ball bouncing by doing different scenes of where the ball is at different time. And you have to know that it's accelerating faster and faster as it goes down and how it bounces up. And it actually does get pretty high level. So for example, at some point it talks about Bezier curves, and you can move things around there and get a Bezier curve matching data. So actually it gets pretty high level, and I thought it was very well done. They have interviews with people discussing how things work there. So I've used that in class time. And here, since I'm in graph theory, I of course use Good Will Hunting. Pretty famous movie, the first movie by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And I think I have 3 scenes. So typically, when I'm teaching graph theory or discrete mathematics, I will give them this problem that they have on the board without telling the students what it's from. And the students can do it, and it's kind of fun when they can see it in the movie. Let me mention that here's a mistake in the movie. They have, you're supposed to list all the 10 possibilities, homeomorphic trees on 10 vertices. In fact, there's only 8 of them there on the board. They actually missed 2. But, so let me show you the 2 blackboard scenes. Let me see here. Yeah, I think this first one, the sound is bad, so you have to listen closely. You can see the reaction anyhow. In our discrete mathematics problems that I give in class, at least the first part, the second part's more complicated. All right, so that's the first blackboard scene. And then here's the blackboard scene where he catches Matt Damon, who is a janitor at MIT in the movie. He catches him writing on the board. Notice he's just filling in dots there.
Sorry. What do you do? Sorry. That's people's work. You can't graffiti here. Don't you walk away from me. Hey, fuck you. Oh, you're a clever one. What's your name? Looks right.
Some maxi is.
All right, so I think that's a good scene. Now the last one I'm going to show you from this movie. Let me first show the scene. I'm not going to tell you why I'm showing you the scene. Just watch carefully though.
Wow. I don't really date, that much.
Very unfortunate. I think for me, you know what I mean? I know you've been thinking about it.
Oh, no, I haven't.
Yes, you have.
No, I really haven't.
Yes, you have. You happen to get a good night kiss.
No, I tell you, I was hoping to get good night late. But I'll settle for like a kiss,
Very noble of you.
Thank you. No, I was hoping for a kiss.
Well, I think we should just get out of the way now.
Right now?
No. Oh. I think I got some of your pickle.
All right, now why did I show you that scene? There was no mathematics in it, right? But let me go back to it. This is one of those nice times when the math consultant for the movie got to be in the movie. So Dan Kleitman is a mathematician at MIT, and he's in this scene. So you had people walking in the background, and he gets to walk through the background, and I've heard two versions of why. So if you watch it, he's the guy in the blue shirt. He's not the weird looking guy in the background. You'll see a weird looking guy also looks in the window. He's a guy in a blue shirt, and he walks by twice. So he walks by first from right to left, and then back from left to right. And I've heard two stories. The one I think is more believable is that he walked across once, and they did a bunch of takes of the scene. And they would do a take, and they say, everybody stay still, stay there. They reset things, take a half hour, then they do it again. And he walked across once, and he said, oh, shoot, the food for the people is on the other side. I want to get back to the other side. So I walked back the other way again. So see if you see him walking, I think first from right to left, then from left to right. He's in a blue shirt here.
I think I got some of your pickle.
Let me move it back here.
Thank you very much. Just beautiful. Yes, I always wanted that blue eyeshadow. Wonderful. My brain's going to be worth $250,000. That sounded horrible, didn't it?
Me.
Much.
Very unfortunate. I think for me.
Yeah,
It works better when I have my rabbit.
Wow. I don't really date, that much.
Very unfortunate. I think for me, you know what I mean? I know you've been thinking about it.
Oh, no, I haven't.
Yes, you have.
No, I really haven't.
Yes, you have. You happen to get a good night kiss.
No, I tell you, I was hoping to get good night late.
Strange guy looking.
Well, settle for like a kiss,
Very noble of you.
Thank you. No, I was hoping for a kiss.
Well, I think we should just get out of the way now.
Right now?
No.
Here he comes the second time. Had to go for the food there. So I think that was a good story. All right, so those are some things I use in teaching. Anything else? Let me see. I think there's one more. Oops, in the wrong direction. All right, this is a very nice movie. So X plus Y, I don't know if many people have seen this one. I think it's a British movie, and it's a very shy, talented young man who has trouble fitting in, and he becomes a contestant to get on England's team for an Olympiad. So this is a problem that's sometimes a pretty tricky problem I sometimes give in a discrete mathematics class.
"20 random cards are placed in a row, all face down. The move consists of turning a face down card face up and turning over the card immediately to the right. Show that no matter what the choice of cards to turn, this sequence of moves must terminate." Nathan, hiding in the back won't help you. Would you like to come up and show us? Okay, so we need to look at the cards, not as cards, but as numbers. We can call face down cards 1, face up cards 0. And initially, it would be a sequence of ones, as the cards are all face down, but after a while it would look something like that. As we can see, that is a binary number. And a move that consists of turning a face down card face up and the card immediately to the right of it could be that a 1 followed by a 1 will turn into a 0 followed by a 0. That would be like that. Or it could be a 1 followed by a 0 turning into a 0 followed by a 1. In either case, we can see that the number in binary is strictly decreasing.
And that means?
Which means that the sequence must terminate.
Because?
Because you can't keep taking away from a positive integer without it turning negative.
No, you can't. You definitely can't. Good work. Everyone, good work.
So that's a very straight movie. He has trouble fitting in, and he kind of finds some support in that group there. Very nice movie if you haven't seen that one. Here's just a collection of a few puzzles from movies. So Die Hard 3. Die Hard was a family favorite. So my wife and I had a tradition on Christmas Eve when we were wrapping presents after our daughters went to bed. Till 2 in the morning, we had to watch a movie, and typically it was either Die Hard or Armageddon, so something with a lot of action to keep me awake. So here's the water jug puzzle. This is edited, so classic puzzle in mathematics, right?
Be careful. Don't open it.
What?
I gotta open it. And it's gonna be all right.
So the bad guy is sitting around town solving all these problems.
Shit! I told you not to open it!
I trust you see the message. It has a proximity circuit, so please don't run.
Yeah, I got it. We're not gonna run. How we turn this thing off?
On the fountain there should be 2 jugs. Do you see them? A 5-gallon and a 3-gallon. Fill one of the jugs with exactly 4 gallons of water and place it on the scale, and the timer will stop. You must be precise. 1 ounce or more or less will result in detonation. If you're still alive in 5 minutes, we'll speak.
Wait a sec! I don't get it. You get it?
No.
Get the jugs. Obviously, we can't fill the 3-gallon jug with 4 gallons of water, right?
Obviously.
All right, I know. There we go. We fill the 3-gallon jug exactly to the top, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, now, we pour that 3 gallons into the 5-gallon jug, giving us exactly 3 gallons in the 5-gallon jug, right?
Right.
Okay.
Then what?
Now, take the 3-gallon jug, we fill that a third of the way up.
No, he said be precise.
Shit.
Exactly 4 gallons.
Copping 50 miles is running his ass off, and I'm out here playing kids' games in the park.
Hey! You want to focus on the problem at hand? Oh, shit! We got less than a minute. Throw this thing away.
Look, we can't take it off of there. It'll detonate. Just wait a second. I got it. Exactly 2 gallons in here, right?
Right.
Leaving exactly 1 gallon of empty space, right?
Yeah.
A full 5 gallons here, right?
Right.
You pour 1 gallon out of 5 gallons into there, we have exactly 4 gallons in there.
Yes.
Pour it in there, come on. Come on. Don't spill it. Good. Exactly 4 gallons.
You did it, McLean.
Put it on the thing. Get it down there.
Shit.
So classic problem there. Here's another classic one. I think this this link is not working, but anytime you can mention David Bowie in a math presentation, it's worth doing. So this is the famous two-door riddle where one of the people is always lying and one is always telling the truth, and they work on that one in that Labyrinth movie by David Bowie. Here's one. So I've cheated now. This is not a movie anymore. This is TV. So here's Tower of Hanoi. I don't know if a lot of you know that one, the Tower of Hanoi problem, where you're trying to move a stack of rings. Here it's layers from one spot to another, but never having a smaller thing underneath the larger thing. So this is a long sequence. I'll just pick out one of them and show you the people working on them. This is something, again, that I would cover in a discrete math class.
Yeah.
Pieces. Come on, Ozzy! This is a very complicated puzzle. Tell me how. Right to the middle, turtle to the top. Savai'i helping Ozzy. They want that first win. Now what?
Now put the turtle on the big stack. Turtle on the big stack.
Upolu helping Coach. Coach and Ozzy both getting a lot of help. The question is, are either of their tribes right?
Now bring the turtle all the way over to the left. Now put the big piece in the middle.
This is how Survivor works right here. Teamwork.
Good job, man. Good job.
So if you have some Survivor fans in your class, that's a good one to show. Da Vinci Code obviously has a lot of the Fibonacci sequence in it. I won't show that scene, but there's one where they have to enter a code and I guess it's the sequence of Fibonacci numbers. There's some other clever things in there. So for example, the woman's name in this movie is Sophia. Sophie for the golden ratio there. So if you get a book on, I have a book called Math Goes to the Movies by Polster and Ross. They'll have things like that in there, that extra information. Here's the famous Monty Hall problem. They do this in the movie 21. 21, I didn't really like the movie. I don't know if people know that movie. That's where a bunch of, true story, a bunch of MIT students do card counting and make a lot of money off the casinos. Here's a scene from that.
And a chance for some extra credit, shall we? We're going to call this the game show host problem, all right? Ben, suppose you're on a game show, and you are given a chance to choose from 3 different doors, all right? Now, behind one of the doors is a new car. Behind the other 2, goats. Which door would you choose, Ben?
Door number 1.
Door number 1. Ben chooses door number 1. All right, now, the game show host, who, by the way, knows what's behind all the other doors, decides to open another door. Let's say he chooses door number 3, behind which sits a goat. Now, Ben, game show host comes up to you and says, Ben, do you want to stay with door number 1 or go with door number 2? Now, is it in your interest to switch your choice?
Yeah.
Well, wait. Remember, the host knows where the car is, so how do you know he's not playing a trick on you, trying to use reverse psychology to get you to pick a goat?
Well, I wouldn't really care. I mean, my answer's based on statistics, based on variable change.
Variable change, but he just asked you a simple question.
Yeah, which changed everything.
Enlighten us.
Well, when I was originally asked to choose a door, I had a 33.3% chance of choosing right. But after he opens one of the doors and then reoffers me the choice, it's now 66.7% if I choose to switch. So, yeah, I'll take door number 2, and thank you for the extra.
All right, classic problem explained there in the movies. I think they did a pretty good job there. Oh, here's probably most people have not seen this one. This is called Fermat's Room. It's in Spanish, so that makes it harder for you to have seen. 4 mathematicians are trapped in a room and they have to solve riddles. Each time a riddle is not solved, the walls close in, threatening to crush them. I won't show you the trailer. I'll show you, oh, and there's some riddles, for example. What's the principle of the ordering of the numbers 854917617632? And my hint to my students is what's the, in the Spanish film, the integers were in a different order. So you can think about it if you want, but think about alphabetical order. I'll leave you with that hint there. What I liked, there's another one. What I liked is the start of the film. I like this because all the women are kind of after the cute mathematician, like he's a sports star or something. So anytime a mathematician is like a sports star,
¿Sabéis lo que son los números primos? Mejor que os vayáis de aquí. En 1742, el matemático Christian Goldbach se fijó en que los números pares se podían expresar como la suma de 2 números primos. Es fácil verlo con números pequeños. El 18 par es 7 más 11, que son primos. El 24 es 5 más 19, que son primos. El 50 es 13 más 37 y así con todos. Dime un número par.
El 100. El 1000.
100 es 83 más 17. Y 1000, 521 más 479. Y con números mucho más grandes también, por ejemplo, un número al azar. 7112. 7112 es 5119 más 1993. Primos los dos. La cuestión es que no se puede ir comprobando si todos los números pares son la suma de los números primos porque los números son infinitos. Habría que encontrar una ley que los abarcase todos. Y encontrarla se ha convertido en el problema más difícil de la historia de las matemáticas.
¿Me la firmas?
Sí, claro. ¿Cómo te llamas?
Inés.
Para Inés. Aquí tienes, Inés.
Gracias. Y suerte, ¿eh?
Gracias.
¿Por qué lo de suerte?
Nada, el 20 de febrero presento mi demostración de la conjetura de Goldbach.
All right, I'll give you a hint. He never actually gives a proof of Goldbach's conjecture. So that's still open if you want to work on that, right? I'll skip this one, but there's another one with Goldbach's conjecture. This is like a 10-minute film, Goldbach, The Calculus of Love. Of a not really obnoxious professor is obsessed with conjecture, and a student gets mathematical revenge. So if you want to see an obnoxious math teacher, you can go look at that one. It's online, it's just a 15-minute short. All right, so I'm looking at classic problems here. So here's Jean-Luc Picard working on Fermat's theorem. Apparently he doesn't realize 500 years from now that was actually solved. So let's look at Jean-Luc.
Come. Fermat's last theorem. You're familiar with it?
Vaguely. I spent too many math classes daydreaming about being on a starship.
When Pierre de Fermat died, they found this equation scrawled in the margin of his notes. X to the nth plus y to the nth equals z to the nth, where n is greater than 2, which he said had no solution in whole numbers. But he also added this phrase, remarkable proof.
Yeah, that's starting to come back to me. There was no proof included.
And for 800 years, people have been trying to solve it.
Including you.
I find it stimulating. Also, it puts things in perspective. In our arrogance, we feel we are so advanced. And yet, we cannot unravel a simple knot tied by a part-time French mathematician working alone without a computer.
So I like them mentioning that after all those years. It's kind of funny. They were thinking it was still not going to be solved there. All right, I'm having a little trouble here. I'm having trouble getting out of here. There we go. Let's see.
A problem worthy of attack proves its worth by fighting back. And that's what Fermat's last theorem was doing. It was fighting back. So we're talking about Fermat's last theorem. And I suppose the place to start is with Fermat, Pierre de Fermat, who was a 17th century mathematician living and working in France. Not working as a mathematician, but working as a judge. And every evening he'd go.
All right. Let me go through some quickly. So some jokes in mathematics. So like counterexamples to Fermat's last theorem. So The Simpsons is a classic one. Simpsons was written partially by mathematicians. And so occasionally
could it be true?
On the board.
Well, this was 1995, and so many viewers who checked with their 1995 pocket calculators concluded that the left and right
side. And they're actually pretty close, but they're just jokes. So for Simpsons had a lot of math jokes in there that most people would not understand. I'm going to get through classic problems. So here's a few movies that talk about classic problems. Clay Institute offered 1 million prizes. Only one of them has been solved. I don't think you can see it very well here. Down here's one of those is the Riemann hypothesis, and that's Key in a Beautiful Mind. Navier-Stokes equation, that's in the movie Gifted with that little girl I told you about before. So movie, it was not a big hit. Guess why? So the traveling salesman problem was one of those problems, P versus MP. And that's just consists of 4 people sitting around the table. They solved this problem, but it would let the government break all codes, basically, right? And be able to spy on anybody they wanted. It's all a discussion of, should we allow that or not? I won't do that. Okay, some other mathematical mistakes. So here's, I never realize this. So in The Wizard of Oz, when the
Back where I come from, we have universities, seats of great learning, where men go to become great thinkers. And when they come out, they think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. But they have one thing you haven't got, a diploma. Therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Universitatis Comitiatum e Pluribus Unum, I hereby confer upon you the honorary degree of THD. THD? That's Doctor of Thinkology.
Sum of the square roots of any 2 sides of an isosceles triangle is equal to the square root of the remaining side.
So you got many things wrong in there. And there's a lot of discussion of whether he just messed up the lines, but they got the script and they put in the script that way, I think, to show that he really wasn't any smarter. Here's one, movie Never Been Kissed. They have Pi Day, and they have a bunch of pies, but they got pi wrong. I don't know how they got pi wrong, but they got it wrong. All right, so at the very end here, I'm going to finish in 10 minutes. Here are some good websites. So Harvard, the math department in Harvard, if you want to look at stuff, has a Harvard movie website, and they have links here to a bunch of different movies that have mathematics in it. And here's four more. So some of you have probably seen the movie, seen the TV show Numbers. At the University of Cornell, they take the Numbers TV show, break it down by episodes, and have examples of different topics that occur in each of the episodes. So probability and statistics, least squares regression occurs in a number of their episodes. So that's very useful if you're looking for something on TV. Pixar in a Box I talked about before. Tangled talks about, this website talks about whole branches of mathematics are being developed to just be able to do the animations. So Tangled is the one with Rapunzel and her hair, and just all the mathematics that they need to develop to do that. Now, I think my last website, what happened here? I think this is my last one. I wanted to talk a little bit about cinematography, of how they set things up, and some people use mathematics to set up the scene. So a couple on this website, it talks about a few things that they use. One is, let me do the start of it. So the rule of three.
The rule of thirds is probably the fundamental building block of all of the rules of composition. What you do is you draw two imaginary vertical lines on your image, equally spaced apart, thus dividing it into 1, 2, 3 sections. Two more horizontal lines equally spaced apart, and you have 1, 2, 3 sections. By placing points of interest or your subject along or near those lines, particularly where they cross, where they meet, you will get a much more pleasing composition. So how do we use this in reality? I've got a windmill over here which I prepared earlier. Now, if we put this windmill smack in the middle of the frame, yeah, it's a kind of interesting shot because it's a windmill on a nice day. But let me just step out of the picture. Just contemplate that for a moment. It's okay, but is it a pleasing composition? Would you think, that's great, I want that on my wall? Possibly not. So what do? We need to move the windmill to a different place in the picture. Now obviously I can't pick up the windmill and move it, so all you've got to do is change the direction your camera's pointing. I've got an imaginary rope attached to the front of the video camera, and I'm going to pull the camera over this way to place the windmill on the vertical third on the left hand side. So let's come over this way a bit. There we go. As we ease it over, it's looking better already. Right, now we've got the windmill sat on the vertical third on the left-hand side of the...
All right, so he talks about the rule of three some, which I never had heard of before I started doing that. This next one, someone looked at the movie There Will Be Blood, very famous movie, a lot of cinematography, and they marked up a bunch of the scenes where they're using the rule of thirds, and especially Fibonacci. So the golden rectangle, golden triangles. So again, the theory is in nature, the Fibonacci ratios occur so often that it's the most pleasing ratio to our eye, and the cinematographers use that sometimes in their scene development. So I'll show you a little bit of this. The music's very pretty, but they'll inscribe how the golden ratio is used a little bit, and you'll see that. rule of thirds to me.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Daniel Plainview. My son is Dublin. Are you hunting? Looking for quail.
I thought that was pretty nice what they did with that one. Finally, let me finish with some Stanley Kubrick. All right, so this is the 1 point perspective, showing how Stanley Kubrick, with a bunch of famous movies, are going to take a bunch of clips from. So this is 2001, obviously, The Shining, Paths of Glory, Clockwork Orange, Dr. Strangelove. So a bunch of Stanley Kubrick films, and they'll have good music showing how he's using all this 1 point perspective, looking out where everything is converging to a single spot. Alrighty. And I think that's it for me. And let me make sure I didn't have to stick anything at the end, any more movies with Old J or anything like that. Nope, I think that's done. So thanks for listening. It was an honor addressing this crowd. Old J's been running the beer for so long. Thank you very much. Well, movie Pie is recommended. Very good. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Since, Mike, you mentioned you use some of these clips when you teach. Every time I teach biomathematics, when the chapter or give a talk to students where I have to mention or not, I always refer to Kate Winslet, where she explained what R naught is in the movie Contagion.
Oh, Contagion. So I thought about looking up Contagion for this talk, but I thought that might depress me too much. So she talks about R naught and Contagion. So that would certainly be a movie to look at right now. Anybody else have other suggestions to put in there? So I saw in the chat some people talking about other movies, but that's a fun topic, and especially when I can use it in teaching, I think it's a lot of fun.
All right, thank you very much, Mike. This was great. It was a great treat, and we got lucky tonight with two great presentations. Thank you again for everybody who joined us. We'll see you tomorrow, starting at 10:30 with the BioSigma education session. And as I mentioned earlier, all the talks and the posters are already up. With that, we'll all hope to see you again tomorrow. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.